This is Inside the Wolf's Den, an entrepreneurial journey with Shawn and Joni Wolfswinkle.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Real Talk, Real Voices. We're so excited to have you back with us. I'm Lavender Lloyd, your host, and today we are talking about one of the franchise owner's biggest pain points, which is your team. So it's one thing to hire people, it's another to build a good, solid team with clarity, one that has initiative, one that grows your business and doesn't go against it. So we're going to explore how some franchise owners are doing this and the ins and outs of all that they've learned and what they're doing. So let me introduce our really awesome powerhouse franchise owners to you today. First, we have Merlin Huff. He is the president and COO and integrator of Real Property Management Express in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, where he helped scale the company to $18 million and then ditched the old playbook. What used to be a game of processes and performance measurement has become a mission to build real teams, not just fill roles. After 8 years in the business and growing a team of 150 members, Merlin is now obsessed with the leadership, clarity, and accountability powered by people who show up with their batteries included. His new playbook? Set expectations, build systems, and then empower the team to drive the company forward. The right people won't just follow SOPs, they'll build better ones, bring the metrics with them, and build an organization greater than the sum of its parts. Express is a proud member of the RPM Power Max peer group. We're so happy to have you. Welcome, Merlin.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here.
All right, next we have Shawn Wolfswinkle. Shawn began investing in real estate more than 26 years ago. He founded Texas Turnkey Properties to better serve the unique investment needs of institutions and individual real estate investors. In parallel, Shawn launched Real Property Management Preferred to oversee the management of properties for the investors supported by Texas Turnkey Properties. The company's outstanding reputation reflects Shawn's commitment to delivering exceptional client service, a strong emphasis on portfolio risk management, and a hands-on approach to property management. Hailing from Santa Fe, New Mexico, Shawn earned a cum laude degree in entrepreneurial studies from the Anderson School of Management. Beyond Texas Turnkey Properties and Real Property Management Preferred, Shawn also owns 2 additional property management franchises and TrueWorks Logistics LLC, an international virtual assisted placement company. In addition, Shawn and his beautiful wife of 23 years, Joni, host the successful entrepreneurial podcast Inside the Wolf's Den, an entrepreneurial journey with Shawn and Joni, affectionately known as the Wolf Pack. The 2 high school sweethearts currently reside in Houston, Texas, with their 2 children, Mila and Lucas. We're so happy to have you. Welcome, Shawn.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, I'm here just as much to learn because Joni and I have hung on to the coattails of Merlin and Josh for years, and so I think you're in for a treat because Merlin's a brilliant guy, and I'll get just as much out of this as I think the listeners will. So
Awesome. Well, that's what we're hoping for. I know everyone will get a lot, so I'm excited. So let's dive in. As I mentioned before, teams are hard to build. So how are you guys doing it? Let's dive into that. So first, when you think about building a team, what does that mean to you beyond just hiring? Merlin, you want to take us away?
Merlin, I'll let you start.
Yeah. So it's been a journey for us. When I started with Real Property Management Express in 2018, we had a team of about 6 people. And Today, our current head count, we've been up as high as 150. Today, our current head count is, I think, 135. And it's very different building a team when you're at 6 people versus when you're at 135 people. And so we've been through many different evolutions, and what building a team meant changed based on the size and the complexity of our organization. So back in the day, we were just trying to find somebody who could function as a generalist, who could follow instructions, who knew broadly how to do the job, but everybody had a pretty close relationship to the center, the core of the company leadership. Effectively, everybody was basically on the leadership team when you're a team of 6. And as the organization continued to grow and evolve, what building a team meant and looked like started to shift. So we went from kind of more of a generalist approach to more specific design by role. And then as our processes changed, which I think we'll talk about a little later on, the nature of what we were looking for from each of our hires also started to shift. And so we were effectively looking initially just for people who could come in and get a job done. And we didn't have anything really sophisticated as far as personality profiles or work aptitudes or specific outcomes and deliverables. And as our organization began to morph, we started looking for more specific things from individual hires. We started getting more and more specific by job and then by team. And today we've reached a level of complexity and sophistication in team building that's more specific to hiring an individual for that team with aptitudes that are set up for that particular seat in the organization, and looking at team dynamics and looking at that individual's ability to deliver specific outcomes that we set out in advance as part of the hiring process. So team building has really shifted. And I would recommend that for anybody who is considering team building or researching team building, you want to make sure that the team building work that you're doing is appropriate to the size and complexity of the organization that you're working with.
Yeah.
That's good. And that's hard to learn as you go sometimes, right? Of how many people do you need and how many do you not need? How did you figure that out along the way?
Yeah, I think at first when you're an entrepreneur and you're starting a franchise, for instance, from scratch, it's you are the chief cook and bottle washer. And then over time, as the organization grows, the workload expands beyond your ability to get it all taken care of. And so then you hire your first team member, and they're going to come in and handle maybe some portion of the administration, or maybe some portion of the billing, or some portion of the work order coordination, or some of the showings. And as the organization continues to grow and you get more responsibilities, again, that has to continue to divide. And so the initial concern is just getting the work done. I need enough people to be able to do the work that needs to be done. And so the hires are kind of dictated by the work that there is to be done. You've also got very tight payroll constraints because you don't have a lot of money coming in. So you don't have the luxury of hiring specific individuals for specific roles in the organization. Again, everybody kind of needs to be a generalist. As the organization begins to grow and you have a little bit more disposable income, then you can start having some specialization. You've got somebody that really just focuses on showings or really just focuses on maintenance coordination. And that trend continues. And eventually you'll get to a point where the hires that you're making are less like we've got more work to do than we've got people to do it. And you start to begin planning in cycles and anticipating the workload that's going to be coming up and hiring in advance of that work before you're actually encountering a shortfall in your ability to get the work done. And even beyond that, then you can start looking in longer term business cycles and start hiring individuals who are for a specific purpose within the organization. So as a case in point, we recently made a hire for somebody in our organization whose sole responsibility is going to be building out curriculum for a leadership school to help cultivate people within our organization and give them the tools that they need to be effective leaders and managers. And if when we were 6 people, if we tried to hire that level of specialization to our organization, we would have totally capsized the boat. Like that's getting way out over our skis in terms of what we could have afforded and even what we needed at the time. So the hiring that we had to do was initially dictated by not getting the work done and needing additional people to get the work done, and then anticipating the work that needed to be done, and then beginning to specialize and plan out team cycles and business cycles, and eventually starting to plan out future dream projects and desire projects that are going to benefit the organization in 2, 3, or 5 years that we're hiring for today to build something that's going to be a long-term investment. So again, just like team building, the definition of team building changes, the need to hire also shifts with the size of the organization.
So much good information in there. Wow. Right off the bat, like, oh my goodness. Yes, you are definitely looking at things differently when you're small compared to when you're big. But I really like how you pointed out, when you're first hiring people, everyone's kind of a generalist. You're not really doing so many specific role fulfillments. That comes over time. And then you can really look at the big picture when you get bigger. I love that. Shawn, how about you? What do you think about all this?
Yeah, no, I think Merlin was spot on, and I hope it gives it hope too that to franchises out there, that even Merlin in his organization, it started off small and grew. Because I think a lot of times people can't see, they see them now and they're like, they can't even picture themselves even being there. But and for us it was the same way. There was many trial and errors and iterations of building a team. Joni and I didn't have any skill set. We came straight out of college, starting our own companies, and so we didn't know what it meant to build teams or how to lead people. So we had to grow ourselves as leaders first and make a lot of mistakes along the way. But for us, it started the same way. We much like Merlin said, it was as a generalist. It was just her and I doing everything, much like many franchises out there. And then we would add one team member at a time. And as it grew, and yes, as the organization got bigger, we started really putting specialized people in certain seats. We made some mistakes along the way. We tried to hire a headhunter and hire really talented people at one time. Didn't do really well. I had to go back to more of a linear model, and then made another run at it, building more of an organization and a team. But I thought that was something that came to mind that I thought was pretty interesting. Was we really started the last, I would say, 2 to 3 years, really focusing on leadership development within our organization as far as building a team. Much like Merlin and Josh, we run EOS. And so it was always like Joni and I and the leadership team and then everybody else. And sometimes there was a disconnect between staff and the leadership team, or if we had turnover or new projects or new softwares or something like that, it put a lot of stress on the leadership team to kind of carry that workload alongside the other tasks that they were doing. So they really weren't able to really lead the organization or lead the team. And we were working with a fractional HR company at the time. And I would meet with the owner every quarter and we would whiteboard like pain points in our organization. And as we were mapping it out, he was like, you know what, you guys are really missing kind of your mid-level managers and the leadership within the middle of your team. There was a big gap between the leadership team and ownership and then the staff. And so the last couple of years, we've really focused on developing so we're pod based, which we'll get into, but pod managers. So they're managers that are running a particular team in our organization. And we really started to focus on the leadership development of those staff members along with our leadership team, so that those members could really focus on developing their teams, handling the day-to-day stuff in property management. And our leadership team could really focus on the higher level stuff that we wanted them to focus on, which developing our team, developing the culture, developing new projects, new avenues we were headed, or new directions. And so that really helped our organization mature a lot over the time period. But as Merlin said before, like this is now 15 years later. So it doesn't start that way. And yes, it's a lot of our higher level people I could never have afforded, when we were younger, but it develops over time. And as you grow, your salaries grow, your people grow, you hire higher caliber people to run your organization. And, but yeah, other than that, I think just focusing on the culture and then the the right person for the right seat, which kind of Merlin mentioned about their skill sets, their capabilities, making sure they're in the right seat is really crucial. And then first and foremost for us, it's always about making sure they're the right person for our culture, for our organization as well. Because if they're not the right fit or toxic, it's never going to work out anyway, even if they're the right candidate or superstar, because it could, we've had some of those along the way too, where they're super talented, but they cause more friction in the organization than they did good. So
I think that's a huge call out because that's something that I think people are too quick to go through their interview process with, and then you end up with somebody who's not really a culture fit. But just also, I'm sure that you guys have learned to kind of alter your interview process and how to figure out what kind of culture fit that person is. But I love you pointed out so many good things in there, Shawn, but I love when you said you and Joni had to build your leadership in you first.
Mhm.
I think that's huge because we're not all just natural leaders, although some of us are. Even if you are, you still have things you could probably build and learn, but you have to do it here first to be able to give it out. And I love that you're doing that. I love that you're making that a focus right now to build into others that leadership skills too.
Yeah.
And that just trickles down. So good.
If I may, if that's
Yes,
okay,
please.
Lavender.
Yeah, yeah,
This is
yeah.
going to feel like this podcast is sponsored by EOS, and it's really not. But when I came into the organization, so Josh founded our franchise, and Josh had been in business for 8 years, 7.5 years since when I came and joined the firm. And one of the things that he is really good at is being a visionary. He's a quintessential entrepreneur. He's a project starter. He's a quick start. He's got a lot of ideas and wants to go, go, go. He wants to get a project started and hand it off to somebody. And one of the challenges that he started to encounter after 7.5 years in the business was he was getting frustrated because he felt like a lot of the team members were saying, you're moving too fast. You're coming up with all these ideas. You just need to slow down. And one of the reasons that he hired me was that he was looking for somebody who would come in and bring that accountability to help the team keep pace. So somebody who's going to be a project manager, somebody who's going to project plan, somebody who's going to forecast, and somebody who's going to ensure compliance in the team and get them to keep up. And when I got hired, I said, no, Josh, you don't need to slow down. You actually need to speed up. It's my job to make sure that they all keep up. And that was a key turning point in the size and scale of our organization. So one little caveat that I just want to put on that idea, because we made the same mistake previously, thinking that, it's what I refer to as the Thanos theory of management, that the boss is the biggest baddie on the battlefield. Like they know how to do everything and they could do anybody's job better than they could. And that's why they're the boss. And in a growing organization, eventually an organization outgrows your ability to do that. If you think about, take Jeff Pepperny, who's the head of the brand. Would Jeff Pepperny have the same skill as a franchisee to come in and lead an office? No, but nobody expects him to. That's not his job. His job is to be the head of the brand, which is a different set of responsibilities. And he's not the head of the brand because he's the biggest baddie on the battlefield, capable of doing a franchisee's job, in the same way that as a CEO of a growing organization, you're not necessarily going to be the best at maintenance coordination or doing showings or marketing your franchise. And so the thing that I want to introduce for potential people who are watching this, especially as they're thinking of building their team, is at a certain point, you may need to hire a certain set of skills into your organization. And that set of skills could include leadership and management, which is different from, you can still retain your CEO founder seat and do everything that seat needs to do in an organization. And you could actually be looking to bring people in with a specific set of skills for leadership and management per se. And I'll just echo what Shawn said. Like, I think that part of what he's pointing to in saying that he and Joni didn't have leadership and management skills when they started out is that they didn't even necessarily know what they were looking for. That was at least what we experienced. And so somebody's got management experience, and so you go, well, they've been a manager before. They must know what they're doing. Or you make the quintessential mistake of taking your best individual contributor and saying, well, you're the best at doing the job. You're obviously going to be good at supervising the job. And you promote them to a boss only to burn them out and lose both a boss and an individual contributor. And so part of the art of management is knowing what you're good at and knowing what your particular set of skills is, and then surrounding yourself with people who complement that. And a
Yes.
way that could be complemented could include leadership and management skill.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah, and we made all those mistakes he just talked about along the way. But yeah, and I guess I don't know, for franchises just starting out, that was what made Joni and I successful early on, was that we're very opposite of each other. So she's the business development, outgoing sales, where I'm more the back end side of stuff, and so it complemented each other really well as we grew. But yeah, we didn't know what we were looking for when we were hiring, and I think every iteration or every time we've made a mistake, we've learned from those, and then we've learned like, okay, next time, here's what we need to look for, and we've gotten better at models. A lot, admitted, we've stolen a lot of stuff from Merlin and Josh along the way, as far as hiring processes, onboarding, and stuff like that. But we've really gotten a lot better at seeking and finding the talent we're looking for up front, and we've gotten a lot better at that. But yeah, usually it's a lot different than skill set wise than maybe Joni and I are. And I think the whole goal for everybody is to have an organization that runs, whether you're there or not. That's something that thrives and grows without us, has always been our goal long term. We'd love to work still, and we'd love to be involved, but I wanted an organization that, whether I took the week off or not, the team's still building, the people we're still building leadership, we're still holding people accountable, we're still doing property management, but and we're bringing in new doors, all while Joni and I are gone maybe for the week. But anyway, off topic. But
No, none of it's off topic. You guys just have at it. That's what we're here for. Good stuff. Okay, so what about the hot topic of SOPs? Did you guys use those when you were building out? I mean, obviously, maybe not at first. Maybe you did. Did you build them out yourself? Is that how you started with hiring more people, realizing that you needed more roles? How did you use them and how did you build them?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I learned from Diana Worthington and Neighborly an interesting statistic that in job training, 10% of an employee's education comes from formalized education. That's learning management system, that's video modules, that's a training handbook, 10%. And 20% of their education comes from working with their manager, doing scenario-based training, doing customer interactions with feedback. And a full 70% of their education comes from on-the-job training. And so when we started growing the organization, initially there was, like I said, a small enough group that everybody is in contact directly with the founder. And Josh was effectively everybody's boss when I came into the company. And as the organization grows, you get farther and farther from the source in some cases that created the SOPs. And again, this kind of goes in a cyclical fashion, because eventually you get big enough that even the CEO gets more distant from the SOP because it's been recreated by whoever that department head is. But what we discovered is that initially, to produce a consistency of experience for our customers, we needed to write down what the thing was that we were doing. We literally had paper checklists at the front desk that,
Nice.
here's how you open up the office. Here's how you close down the office. Here's how you do a showing. It was paper checklists where people would bring a clipboard and mark each thing off as they got it done. And eventually we migrated to a digital checklist where we were using Asana to keep track of the things that needed to be done. And from there, we said, well, we need something that can help people know the full scope of this particular task. So we're going to use our Asana checklist, not just as a checklist at a high level to make sure that the tasks are getting done, but we're going to pack in there all the information that somebody would need if they're brand new to the process, so that our Asana checklist could both be the master process and also serve as a checklist for people. Well, that started to break down because people who got good at doing the checklists, they knew most of the steps, so they weren't going to waste time going and checking them off. So they started skipping steps. Well, a natural consequence of that is that they would begin skipping some essential steps, or you didn't actually know where you were in all these various projects. So we realized that we were using a task management system, Asana, to serve two purposes. One was task management and the other was process management. We realized that distinction. So all of our task management started from reading the E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber. And then when we discovered systemology by David Jennings, who is the intellectual descendant, if you will, of the E-Myth, he said, well, there's a different component to this, which is basically the process management. Think of that like the owner's manual for your car. You know, it goes in your glove box, you never open it, you know how to get in and drive. And if you did have a checklist for driving, it would be open the door, turn on the ignition, put it in drive, hit the gas pedal. You're not going to have to read through this big, thick process management system in the owner's manual to get the job done. You just want a very lightweight checklist to make sure you're doing all the essential components. So when we got that distinction, we started using a platform called System Hub to document all of our core processes. And we've since migrated away from System Hub into a Google Doc format. So it gives all of our processes start to finish. But that was how we evolved our core process. And we got to the point now where using a lot of the systemology framework, we can go from having a subject matter expert who knows how to do the job. They don't have to be a teacher. They don't have to be capable of instructing somebody else or guiding somebody else to do it, but we can have them record a video, a narrated video of them doing the process, saying what they're doing as they're going through it with like a screen capture or just a video of them walking through a showing. If it's an in-person thing, we can go from that recording to a documented process with training, all with training videos and an LMS created inside of 20 minutes today. Now, that's something that took a lot of time to develop, and we're using AI tools to be able to do that, but it's really helped to decentralize the process creation, modification, and upkeep throughout our whole organization. So it's definitely been an evolutionary process from like paper checklists, making fire with rubbing two sticks together, to a much more sophisticated and decentralized version of process management, where now, as I said, there are processes that are being created in our organization today that I am no longer familiar with as an author and doer of the process. Like our team is now creating them and maintaining them over time.
Nice. So do you have people in those positions doing those processes and outlining them, or do you have someone in leadership doing that, or how did you build that? Because it sounds
Yeah.
like you have a lot of them.
Again, I'm packaging a lot of history and a lot of evolution into a
Mhm.
short description. So I don't want to encourage people to get too far ahead of where they are in the growth of their business. But what I'll say we do today is we have a member of the team who is responsible for process management. Now, her responsibilities include making sure that things are formatted correctly and that they're logged in the appropriate location. And she has the master keys to the core process document. So any modifications to the core process go through her as kind of a gatekeeper. But even she is not knowledgeable enough about enough of the areas of the company to be able to say, this process makes sense, this process works, this process is going to come into conflicts with other. So the department heads are actually having to write that process. And so we have a process for process management. And so what'll happen is you submit a form. If you observe that there's a change to a process that needs to happen, we have a form that can be submitted, and that goes into the queue saying, this is the portion of the process that I think needs to be modified. Here's the modification that I think needs to be made, and here's why I recommend making it. And if you've got recommended language, then that all gets submitted in a form, and that goes to her desk, and then she takes a look through it and, checks off with the appropriate people if necessary, and then says, yes, this is now authorized, and this is going into our core process document. Back in the day, that would have been a more decentralized process, and it would have been managed by the department heads themselves. Now, at our current size and scale, we've got enough diversity in department heads that the resulting product in terms of like how a process was laid out, the steps, the clarity, the formatting, the language, there would have been inconsistency in that. And so for the purposes of making it all uniform, we have it going through one single point. But the systemology team and the systemology framework really does a good job of setting you up for success for that. even from a much, much smaller company size. So I highly recommend them as a resource for process management per se. And they taught us everything that we know about process extraction, documentation, and gave us a lot of the leads that we use today in terms of how to build training from that.
Told you
Excellent.
he was smart. Yeah. So,
That's
yeah.
excellent. How about you,
As
Shawn?
far as ours, it's very, we had a similar evolution. So everything was on paper. So we used to, in the very beginning, everything was a check box, and they would go through that a leasing thing, and you'd staple it on top of the lease, and you'd have, did they go through all the steps? Then we moved to Asana, and all our stuff was in Asana. And then the latest, all of our SOPs are in Lead Simple now. And so we were one of the franchises that moved completely into Lead Simple so that we could minimize our softwares. So we could have our inbox, we could have our CRM, and then have our task management in one system. And I've met with several franchises about this. I've talked with Merlin about it. It's not perfect, and Lead Simple is not perfect. I think there's gonna be some, as we record this, there's a new CEO. There's some changes going on. I think they're making improvements to it, and it's not a perfect system, and I don't think there really is necessarily anywhere. But for now, it took us 18 months to fully adopt Lead Simple, so we're committed and we're in it. But yes, it documents in all the steps for all the major processes that we have in property management, from leasing to evictions to rent collection, everything. And so our staff are just able to log in, just much like the paper or Asana, just kind of check their tasks for the day and complete what necessary steps they need to do. Staff managers are able to manage to make sure the tasks are being completed and see what's behind and see which processes are behind. And so we're at a good place now, but it took us a full 18 months to get there, and get full adoption. We did something similar, which again, we borrowed from Merlin and Josh, was on the we use it more on the onboarding side and the training. What he was talking about with kind of and I'm sure we're going to get into that, but it is a really cool process using AI and some of the softwares that they discovered that you can create a whole training module and record it and put it into videos and use AI to have the videos. And also Merlin can probably explain it better than I am right now, but where you can record it and screen record, and now it just like they can go through the whole steps of doing a lease and Appfolio, and they do it like kind of like they're doing it in real time, which has been really a cool process for training and that repetitive nature that we do in this business for new onboards to learn that process. I'm sure we're going to get into onboarding, but
Well,
I don't
let's
get too
get
far
into
ahead.
it right now. Let's get
Yeah,
into
so
onboarding.
so they so staff have really now our process for I'd like to start over then. As far as bringing on new staff, it should be a huge focus, I think, for franchises, because I think just as much as we put emphasis on properly onboarding a new owner, which I think is crucial, or a new tenant, resident, because if you fail on that first part of an onboarding for a owner or a resident, it usually sets up the whole relationship for that client if
Yeah.
you fail. And so I think that goes as well for employees. And I think we miss that boat a lot. So we spent a ton of time focusing on onboarding new employees. And so we built it into Lead Simple, but we have a whole process for onboarding a new employee. They get a bunch of emails, welcome stuff before they even start with our company. So we really make them feel welcome before they even set foot in the door. Messages from Joni and I, but everything's laid out. So everything that's supposed to happen on day 1, day 2, lunch with staff in day 1, everything's already laid out in Lead Simple, step by step. But as far as the training for new onboarding, which we took from Merlin and Josh, was really how and we stole this from them, how people learn more effectively. So from the not just sitting them in front of a thing and watching videos, but more of an evolution of real live on training where they can, again, like I said, where they can walk through a whole lease, execute it. They can learn how to do it first, then they can do it without screwing anything up. And then to the next evolution of working with somebody. So they spend some time with a staff member, watching that staff member do things in real life and real time. And then the next one is, okay, now they're executing on it with some supervision from a supervisor. So those are the steps we've taken as far as training and onboarding, but we've really spent a lot of time on making sure that we really onboard a new employee effectively, and it makes a big difference. Again, it sets up the relationship at the beginning where they're like, wow, this company really they care about me, they want me to succeed, and it sets up a really good relationship going forward. So I don't know, you can add on to that, Merlin. Sorry.
Yeah, I'd say that we talked about process and SOPs, and you hit the nail on the head, Shawn. Having a documented process is followed by all for your onboarding helps you to remove improvisation from the process. I was just having a conversation about sales process design, and one of the things that I've encountered frequently with people who are in some kind of sales oriented role is some version of, well, you just get in there and you do it. You feel what the client needs and you have the conversation with them. There's no real process that I can document. It's a feel thing. And some of the people who I admire the most in the sales discipline are people who say, no, there is a sales process. You can have people who are better at following the process, people who are better at inhabiting what the steps of that process are, but there's a process that you can follow. There's a great text called The Ultimate Sales Machine that talks about that very thing, designing a sales process, because it helps you to troubleshoot where things are off. And the issue that you encounter when you don't have documented SOPs, when you don't have protocols that are followed by all, is that sometimes you'll wind up with that one person who improvises really well. They're that brilliant jazz musician that can just get up on the stage and play. And then you have other times that feel like the open mic night with the amateur. This is the first time they're picking up a bass guitar, and it's not as good. And that contrast produces inconsistency. And then inconsistency in the onboarding experience, inconsistency from a cultural experience. And so to the best of our ability, we wanted to set up something that was codified, that would help us to improve over time by making tweaks and observing the impact. And you can't really do that if everybody's improvising the process every time. And so what we've done now we've got enough division, enough clear swim lanes in the company that we have onboarding experiences. We have a generic onboarding experience like welcome to the company, that we have role-specific training that is designed specifically for that individual coming into that particular role. And it consists of the learning management system with videos and written text that they read and some skill checks that are built in. And it also consists of scenario-based training that the trainee does with their manager that all culminates with a manager sign-off at the end saying, yes, I've been through the scenario-based training, and yes, this individual is ready to go. And then we've got a survey that goes to the manager. I think that it's 2 months after hire to ask, how is this individual doing? And is there anything that you wish that they had known that they didn't know coming in on the front side? That helps as a feedback loop to then improve the training going backwards. And just one funny anecdote that I'll give on the training side, we used to have purely on the job training. It was like, here's the checklist, you sit with somebody, they do it, you watch, and you're basically in it. We're pushing you into the deep end. At least you had floaty wings. And then we had people that were saying, hey, I'm not trained for these jobs. I really want more training. Like, is there a video I can watch? Is there a process I can read? So we went, great, we'll produce all these processes, create all these amazing processes and create all these training videos. And then we would have people saying, yeah, there's like all these videos that I can watch on this process, but it doesn't actually teach me how to do the job. Like, I just need to get on the job and do it. And so there was a certain, like, you're never going to satisfy thing about it. And at the end of the day, we're going to provide the tools, we're going to provide the manager oversight, and then there is that 70%, which is just the on-the-job training. And frequently, there's some discomfort that's associated with it, but discomfort always attends growth.
Yeah. And what I was going to mention earlier too, and I know Merlin's experiences too, like it needs to be, why they're so important is because as the franchise grows and as you, like in Merlin's case, he has multiple locations, but he also has multiple apartment complexes. We have now several apartment complexes we're managing, but also we have 2 different offices in Albuquerque and Houston, and they all got to run the same, and they all got to be on the same processes. And so having it documented, having everybody on the same, and there might be some state laws that change, so you might make some tweaks upon the state, but for the most part, we want everybody doing the same thing. And if you don't have a process documented, they will create it for you, and then it might not be what you want. And so you got to make sure that it was originally either a manager or somebody that had the skill set or understanding on how they wanted this executed, and then they document it, and then it becomes a process for you. But for us, it's always been, we don't got quite the chain of command. It goes from our pod managers usually bring ideas or tweaks to our operations manager. Our operations manager runs both markets. So that person's the only person that can change a process if we need to. But so it's similar. We just don't have quite a documented submission and all that yet. But a very similar process to what Merlin mentioned earlier.
It's so good. I'm hearing so much about culture right off the bat. Like you guys are onboarding people with that welcoming culture. You're letting them know what they're getting into. You're building that relationship and creating that safety that I think a lot of people need to feel when they first get hired, because that helps them feel like they can make mistakes and it's okay, right? As you both said, you learn, and there's that on the job learning. They're not always going to do it perfectly. But as you are clear about everything and you have the steps, they have it in front of them, but they feel safe enough because you've brought them into a warm, welcoming culture with steps they can learn. And I think that's huge. So how long is this onboarding process for you guys
Yeah, that's a
before
good
you're just
question.
throwing them to the wolves?
So we learned that throwing them to the wolves is not a effective strategy, and that sometimes it works, but it works by accident, not by design. And you get much better results when you help to protect them from the wolves just a little bit. And one thing that I will say, Shawn's been very complimentary about learning a lot from us. I'll just say that we've actually learned a lot from Shawn, and he's giving us too much credit. We just repackage what we learned from the Wolfswinkles and then say it back to them. They go, wow, that sounds really brilliant. But one of the things that I've seen that they have done really well culturally, and that we've taken a page out of their playbook or strive to, is that we can be very business oriented, KPIs, measurables, getting work done. And people who come to visit our office frequently report something like that. Like, there's a lot of people who work really hard here. Do you guys ever have any fun? And I hear all these amazing stories about ways in which Shawn and Joni are involved in the lives of their team, and they're doing things together as a team and investing in their team, and they care about them personally in a way that really shows up in that company culture. And I think that is a big difference maker, that people spend the vast majority of their waking hours with their fellow employees, with the people that they work with. In some cases, you spend more waking hours with your company than you do with your family. And so you should like them. You should enjoy the life that you're spending with these other human beings. To your question specifically about how long is the onboarding process, we have what we call orientation, which is 2 days. And the orientation process actually starts much earlier. It starts during the hiring process. By the time somebody has been with our company for 1 full quarter, 90 days, they should have heard our values, our company values, 7 separate times. And that's not just mention in passing. That's an explicit run through of the company values, the use statements that indicate who the type of behaviors that somebody demonstrates when they're demonstrating this company core value. They've heard that explicitly 7 separate times. And at least one of those times is during the hiring process. So our onboarding starts long before the offer is actually accepted or even made. It starts during the interview, where we're orienting them to what our company values are and what we stand for, and verifying that they are a good match with that. So we do that explicitly, not just by asking questions that are aimed at, we do that too, but not just by allusion. We do it by explicit statement. Then onboarding is from the day that their first day of actual work. They have 2 days of systems training and logins and company acculturation. And then it depends on the nature of the role, but broadly speaking, we want to have everybody have completed all of their basic training inside of the first 4 weeks, and in many cases inside of the first 2. Our goal is to have people within, like the young gazelle, they can get up and take their first furtive steps inside of the first 2 weeks on their own. So we want them working with their manager and working with the LMS to get through that. The orientation is 2 days, and then onboarding is the 2 weeks following those first 2 days to get them into a shape where they at least understand the basic block and tackle of their job. And then the other component to it is the on-the-job training. I think we'll talk about this in a bit, but the EOS structure really does a lot of the work for us. There's a strict cadence that gets everybody on the same page pretty quickly. When you have meetings that start at the same time and end at the same time and have the same agenda every time, it enables people to start to predict what their team is going to need from them. And that helps to get everybody into the same cycle and cadence and on the same page. So the short answer to your question is 16 days, 2 days of onboarding and 14 days of orientation.
That's good. Thank you for the details.
Yeah,
Shawn?
that was great. No, ours is similar. I would say as far as like onboarding, like what he's talking about, where they're pretty much running. No, I wouldn't say they're running. They're walking in their job. Would be that 2 to 3 weeks. And we have a similar thing. I think we follow it a little bit further, which I'm sure Merlin does as well. But like more of a, there's several check-ins, and there's part of the onboarding. It's still in our onboarding process in Lead Simple, but there is a 30, 60, 90-day kind of cadence of one-on-ones or check-ins. And it's just more, there's a process for, we're trying to get feedback from the employee, and allow also for the manager to give his or her feedback to the employee as well. So things that they're doing great, things that maybe is there something that they didn't understand that they can go back and go over again. But we also want to get a lot of feedback from the employee on how was their experience, how was the manager, how was that hired them and trained them, how was the technology, and that's how you learn from mistakes that you made, or maybe it's too complicated, or maybe and lately it's kind of been interesting. We've had a couple of recent hires that they want to run right away, and we've actually had to slow them down. And that's, I think, there's some great things in people taking initiative, and you want staff to take initiative and all that. But again, they've got to learn, I think, the company's culture, the company's processes. I think they're used to making decisions and processes on their own. So they were kind of wanting to like just take off and run. And it's like, well, hold on, that's maybe not how we want things handled. And so like, we got to go through this whole process, and they're probably capable of running on their own, but you still got to follow our processes. So the 2 most recent hires, we had to actually slow them down and then go through the whole process. Which they I don't know if they were accepted of it, but they were like, wow, you like, I thought I could just take off and go. So one was a sales role, so it was a little bit, he wanted to just jump in. But I think it's important that you take that time up front, so then there's no, because then you're handling, you're going to have issues down the road that you're going to have to recorrect, and that's much harder than just doing it at the beginning. And then also, I think those 30, 60, 90-day check-ins, just make sure that everybody's on the same page. It's what they expected. It's are they fully capable, of doing their job and doing, the roles that we assigned them, making sure that it's a good fit, because we can do a lot on the front end as far as like interviews, personality tests, all that, and we can still make mistakes, and it's just, people can interview very differently than they are in the office, and so making sure that is the right person, the right fit, the right culture fit, and then the right person for the seat. So I think having those check-ins and regular check-ins is important. Something that we did also too as part of the process, I think is crucial, is they get assigned a mentor. in the beginning. So the mentor gets, before they even start, the mentor gets notified, hey, this person's starting on this date at this time. And so they go out of their way to make sure that they're welcome and they're checking in with them. So this is outside of their manager. This is somebody usually in the same role as them, and is going to know what is expected of them. And so throughout those first 90 days, that mentor is really there to support them. Just, if they need an answer bounced off, sometimes people feel uncomfortable taking that to their manager. They don't want their manager to think that they don't know something that maybe they should have, when they're hired. So they'll go to their mentor and ask their mentor for advice. So I think and it gives also, what we found too is, it gives more ownership or buy-in to the people that become mentors, because then they're like, wow, I'm valued in this company that they assign me to
Yes.
mentor this person. I think so. It gives them, they're not paid for it additionally anymore. But it gives them that, like, hey, that I'm valued in this organization. So
I
See, this is great.
absolutely
I
love
told
that.
you. Told you Sean's got great ideas. I'm stealing that one too, Sean.
Yeah.
yeah,
Wow, I think that's huge. Having a mentor outside of whoever your manager is, like that's
correct,
huge. That creates not only a lot of safety and vulnerability and being able to learn and grow, but there's so much accountability in that. It's not just on one person. I
correct.
think that's huge. So on that, when you have mentors, you have managers, how do you all create that clarity? We've talked about, those steps of making sure they're following processes, but what do you do to make sure everything's going as planned? That do you have daily check-ins, weekly check-ins? How are you building all that accountability without micromanaging, unless you are micromanaging?
Yeah, I've often said that nobody really truly wants to micromanage. And if micromanagement is happening, it's because there's some lack of trust, some lack of trust and
Hmm.
competency or sincerity or reliability that's getting in the way. And if you provide the necessary trust, most people want to take their hands off and not be as deeply involved in the action. That being said, you do still need to keep your finger on the pulse. And again, one of the things that has been a huge gift to our organization is the structure that's provided by EOS. So we have, as I mentioned, L10 meetings or level 10 meetings for every single team. So if you are a boss, you have an L10 meeting. And in that meeting, you have the same agenda every time. So you're meeting 90 minutes once a week with your team. And that should be the meeting that in many cases is the meeting to end all meetings for you and your team members. So you shouldn't need additional meetings on top of that. It shouldn't be a death by meeting phenomenon. But the agenda of those L10 meetings serves to provide the accountability that is necessary. So every member of every team has a measurable or measurables that are assigned to them that they are accountable for every single week. And they are reading off those measurables in that meeting every single week. And then those measurables show up as part of their quarterly conversation, which is happening with their boss every quarter as a look at how their performance has been. So that's one component to verifying that the work is being done. Now, there still is process management, like you can produce results, but not necessarily follow the process. And that's going to be a manager responsibility. The managers need to be aware that all of their team members are adhering to the process. That's what we call process FBA, or followed by all. And so we need everybody doing the same thing every time. And managers should be identifying performance failures where that's falling apart. And then the other way that we maintain accountability is in addition to our day-to-day responsibilities or week-to-week responsibilities, which are tracked in the form of measurables, every team member also has a rock or rocks that they're working on for that particular quarter. So that's going to be any to do or project that's going to take longer than 2 weeks to complete, but less than 90 days. And they take that on, they specify it. It's going to be a smart rock. And then they're working on that and reporting progress on that as part of the L10 meeting every single week. For weekly responsibilities that are kind of ad hoc or in addition to regular run-of-the-mill job responsibilities, we have to-dos, which are also checked in on every week. So every meeting starts with a review of action items, with a review of measurables, and then with a status update on rocks before we get into the main body or discussion in the meeting. And then that discussion is oriented to, if you didn't get your action items done, why not? What's standing in your way? If your rock is off track, why? What's standing in your way? If you're not getting your measurables up to where their goal is, why not? What's standing in your way? And then using the team to overcome your obstacle in getting those things accomplished. And that protocol has really decentralized accountability across our entire organization.
Excellent. Shawn?
So yeah, something similar. The way we're structured, so franchises can understand that, is we're pod based except for accounting, business development, sales and marketing, and like receptionist stuff is outside the pods. But each pod manager has an L10 with each one of their team. Accounting has an L10 each week, and then our leadership has L10s. And so each team is having their own L10s, which, to Merlin's point, it does hold them accountable. They have their to-dos, they have their rocks for the quarter. And that does, I think it's more just structure. And like, when I think with our kids, Joni and I have a lot of structure, and it just helps us run better. We run more efficiently when we're structured.
Agreed.
And so, bedtime's at a certain time, all that. Well, our meetings are all at a certain time, and it functions really well. We do the similar, we do check-ins quarterly, and then they have more of an annual review. The annual ones are a little bit longer, more in depth. We set goals with the employee. And then on those check-ins, we're checking in on them, and then we're checking in on their goals, making sure they're accomplishing them. But we also do a lot of one-on-ones. So I think that it's important that we've learned over the past is just not to let things linger, or let things, rather have a quick one-on-one to address a certain issue, or if you saw something that maybe behavior that wasn't that something you want in your organization, kind of have a one-on-one and reset. I think it's so holding them accountable to that, and knowing, rather than just letting it go, and it usually becomes a bigger issue down the road if we don't address it right away, or don't wait until they're quarterly to address it, or their annual. I think by then it's too late. So we're trying to do more one-on-ones.
So on that note, how do you all handle someone if it's just not a fit? Or maybe they're a culture fit, but maybe you realize through the onboarding they're in the wrong position, or through the onboarding they're just not a good fit at all. How do you handle that?
That's a great question. So there's a text that I'll recommend for everybody that I recently went back and reread, called Multiplication by Subtraction. It's by a strategic coach. I think Shannon Waller is the primary author on that, Multiplication by Subtraction. And it covers a variety of different scenarios of when you know that there needs to be some change in your team. It gives you tactical advice on how to approach each one of those scenarios. So I highly recommend that. There's a variety of different scenarios that you can encounter, and you presented a few of them. One of them is, inside of the first few months, you quickly realize that you're not getting what you thought you were getting as part of the interview process. You did all of your vetting, you did all your reference checks, you did all of your robust interview questions and personality profiles, and they came and they started, and you feel like you got some kind of bait and switch, or they're just not jiving with your company. Those ones are going to be some of the easier ones to address. And you sit down with them and you say, hey, this is what we were expecting. This is what we're getting. Do you see an opportunity to correct this? Because if not, this probably isn't a good fit. And it's early enough in the relationship that it's not as painful as, say, if you've worked with somebody for years and you're having to make some adjustment to your working relationship. Again, I'll say that EOS has a great protocol for this. And you go through, as part of our quarterly conversation prescription in EOS, there's several sections that you go through in the conversation. One portion is a values match. So you're looking at each of your company core values. How frequently do you see this individual demonstrating that company core value? The team member rates themselves, and you rate them according to a minus, plus minus, or plus schema, where a plus is you see them demonstrating that company core value 80% or more of the time. Then you've got a GWC section, which is, do they get it? Do they want it? And do they have the capacity to perform in that particular seat? And these are two separate sections by design, because you want to have the right people in your organization, and that means that they're a strong values match. And then you want to have them in the right seats, and that means that they get, want, and have the capacity to perform in their particular seat. And these two questions need to be treated separately. And what I've seen a lot of managers do is sometimes they muddy the waters and they go, well, you've done this, and so it's kind of a values thing, when really they just didn't have the capacity to get their job done. And so it's useful to treat those two things separately, because the solution or the method that you use to address that problem is going to change depending on what the problem is. So you could have the right person in the right seat. That's ideal. That's what you want. You could have the right person, but they're in the wrong seat. So they are a solid values match, but they just don't get, want, or have the capacity to perform in their seat. And then you're going to be looking for a different seat in the organization for them. And oftentimes that's a self-resolving problem, or a problem that you can resolve easily in conversation with them, because they're probably struggling to get the job done. They love the company. They love what you stand for. They really resonate with the mission, but for some reason, the job is not working for them. So a very obvious example of this is if you have somebody that's very, outgoing and sales oriented, not super detail oriented, but they're very gregarious. They might be a great fit for a sales role, but if you had them in a back office accounting role, they might be miserable. And so you want to get them into the right seat for their particular skill set. You can also have the opposite problem, which is that they are in the right seat. They kill it doing their job, but they are not a strong values match. And those ones are tough because we alluded to this earlier, but you need to address the values match problem, because otherwise it's going to erode your company culture, and they're going to start burning out some of your other people who are a values match. And that's a hard problem to address, because you're often in a position going, I know that they aren't a good fit for the company, but they do such a good job that I'm really reluctant to let them go. And so that, again, requires a different solution. Sometimes it can be addressed by clearly identifying the areas where they're not demonstrating company core values and what they can do to get themselves to demonstrate it. And other times it needs to be a parting of ways conversation. And then the last one is the most obvious, which is wrong person, wrong seat. And again, that's typically a problem that's pretty easily resolved. But the method for us would be just like Shawn said, you want to address it early and often. You want to reward and recognize, which means you give critical and feedback and praise within 24 hours, praise in public, criticize in private, and you just have a conversation with them. Say, hey,
Good.
What happened here? There's a little breakdown. I think that maybe we weren't aligned in terms of expectations, but what was going on here that you did X and we needed Y? So you get that alignment. If the issue continues to progress, then you could take the next step to having a formal conversation. And if we've got a significant values mismatch conversation, or a GWC mismatch, then that might result in a performance improvement plan, where we're going to be laying out explicitly, here's the area where we're not quite where we need to be, and here's specifically what it looks like and what you're going to need to specifically deliver to demonstrate that you are a values match, or that you do GWC. And then we proceed through a 3 strikes program, where if they don't succeed in modifying the behavior, then it might ultimately be a parting of ways. But it's all very front-footed, very with a lot of consideration for the other individual and for their humanity. And we want to not ever blindside people, but let them know when they're failing to meet expectations, that they have a chance to change the behavior if it's something that they want to do.
So good.
That's really
Shawn.
good. We do the same thing. So we use the people analyzer as well. And usually the manager, and then like our ops manager or Brett, our COO, will sit down with them, and they'll analyze the people analyzer. We have something that we're willing to, I guess, we'll rate it and what we're willing to tolerate or handle, and then we rate that person. And so if it didn't, and majority of the time it's nothing rocket science. Like we pretty much, when we go through that process of the people analyze, we already know the answer. It's just like it just makes it clear now. We usually know already going in what probably is the right solution, but it just makes it clarifies it and makes it easier for you to make the decision. In most cases, yeah, if there's some rare cases where we've had the right culture fit, and we've been able to move the person if they're in the wrong seat. But I more than not, we probably ended up. So and then if it's just a behavior issue, we'd use performance um, improvement plans to try to correct it, and then give them 30 days to recheck in and make sure that they made effort to change. And then again, a 3-strike rule is similar to what Merlin said. But more than anything, I think with a lot of this stuff is, and it's not something I'm great at, but we've learned to do, is just having difficult conversations, right, up front. And
Yes.
these are usually uncomfortable, but it's you have to have those early on, and even those one-on-ones. And it's more difficult if it's somebody maybe it depends on the position. I think, like Merlin said, it's very easy, and we've done that where we've made some. It's like, this is not the same person we interviewed. Like, I don't know where, like, it was like night and day, and we've made a quick decision, like, hey, hey, I don't, this is not what we expected. I don't think it's a good fit, and we just ended it quickly. Same thing usually with somebody that's not a good culture fit and in the right seat. Those are really the ones that are difficult, are those in the middle. And so if it doesn't improve with the performance improvement plan, we usually terminate, and it's better to do it sooner than later. I've have some really bad scars and wounds from ones that I didn't, and we learned a lot from it. But I would hope that franchises would learn from that. And hey, it's better to just have that difficult conversation. It doesn't have to be rude or mean, or it just sometimes it's just not a good fit for both parties. So
The other thing that I'll say to give people some hope too, and I wonder if you've found this, Shawn, is that while the conversation may be something that you're reluctant to have on the front side, the result is actually better for everyone in the end. Like when you are doing a job that you are not good at, or that if you're in a company that's not a good values match for you, you're not happy. It's not like everything feels great and you're just loving what you're doing, and then somebody's coming ripping paradise away from you. Instead, they probably feel the tension too. And so by addressing the issue, first of all, addressing it early and often gives you the chance to have the conversation before it really builds up into something that is, now you got a laundry list of stuff to address with them. And in circumstances where our managers have done that, the managee has said, why didn't anybody tell me? Like, I would love to have known this earlier on before it reached this point. It gives them a chance to correct if that's something that they truly want. And if they don't truly want it, it gives them a chance to go and find something that's a better match for them. So then the team gets better because they're not working with somebody that isn't a good values match. The company gets better because they have an opportunity to hire somebody that really is a values match. And it's better for that individual who may have to part ways with the company too, because they have the opportunity to go and find a job that's better for them, or a company that's better for them in their particular style.
I agree. Yeah, no, and what I've noticed is that a lot of times it's what we're telling ourselves in our own heads. Like we're building it up like it's going to be this big clash, and usually you go into those conversations and it's like they're feeling the same thing. So it's like, and then it's like a big relief. It's like, oh, okay, we're on the same page, and usually either they want something different, they're cool with, hey, let me just find something else, and then or they weren't aware of what's going on. Yeah, so I agree.
Incredibly important things that we all need to learn. And I know I've learned that too, but I like putting that timeline. Don't let things build up. Talk to people within like 24 hours of seeing something, because not only for their sake, because they may not recognize it or realize that they're doing something that isn't good, but like you said, it builds up. And then you have a laundry list of things that you need to take care of, and that's not fun for anybody. So you got to pull up our big boy pants and have those difficult conversations, right? Okay, on a lighter subject, what are some of your favorite things that you do with your teams that build fun and build good culture?
Oh, we don't have any fun. Shawn, this one's for you.
I know you do. I've seen social media
So
of both of you.
yeah, so I'll start, but I think everybody in here knows that property management's tough, and it's a tough business. And so since the beginning, and I've had to reel it back. It's in my early days, we used to have like a bar cart, and we like Friday afternoons we're going down the hallways making drinks. I was like, I had one of the first CEO I ever hired. He was like, the first thing we're doing is we're getting rid of the bar on Friday. That's a huge liability. And I was like, but I mean, anymore today, it's for sure quarterly. We switch them. Each one quarter we'll do an outreach event. So we just did the Houston Food Bank. It's a great
Nice.
organization. It's easy to take larger groups, and we work in their warehouses and package food that's going to be delivered. And then the next quarter we'll do a fun activity as an organization together. So, and it's usually team building. So we've done a go-kart racing, tree climbing course. The tree climbing was a really popular one. That was a pretty cool. What else have we done? Escape rooms, where you go
Nice.
break plates and let out all your frustration, whatever those are called, stuff like that. So we try to do just fun outreach events to get out, and the staff really enjoys them because they get to still hang out with their coworkers, which majority of them like each other, and so they love hanging out with each other. But outside of work and having fun, and you get to see a different personality and or different side of people that you don't get to sometimes see and so those are fun events that we do to keep it keep the culture and keep the team building going.
And
So
it's an investment, but completely
oh
worth it.
yeah, and they're paid for that whole afternoon plus the whole event. So
Nice.
they really enjoy it. And our remote staff that aren't able to join into that, they get a paid afternoon off, which they don't mind at all, and so they get to participate as well. And in that. So, and going back to, I was going to mention too, as far as the accountability piece and all that, majority of the property management companies here have remote staff. And so, I think you should be doing everything that we talked about, the onboarding, the accountability piece, all that. You should be doing the same thing for your remote staff, that you're doing with your on-site. So treat them no differently and have those same experiences, whether or not they're in the office or not. So
Fantastic. Yes, Merlin.
Yeah, I mean, I was being kind of tongue in cheek when I said that we're all about work and that Shawn was the guy to go to for that. But look at all the stuff he just rattled off, the fun stuff that they're doing with their team. We had to learn, it's something that I had to learn. So I am a very production oriented person. What do I do for fun? Is I do more projects. My mom came to visit the other day and she said to my wife that I was making her nervous because I was running around on my day off getting stuff done. And my wife said, "Oh, no. I don't think you understand. This is how he relaxes. He gets stuff done." So for me, it's not a for free. So talking about hiring people around you that have a skill at that, you said you have been paying attention to our social media. Our social media does seem fun because we hired fun people to do our social media. They
Yes.
have fun creating that material. Like if you left that to me, I'd be like filming somebody going, "Tell me about the projects that you got done today." That's I'm probably gonna love this. And it wouldn't get any likes, wouldn't get any follows, wouldn't get any hearts. And so there is a component to it of developing the skill. And if you can't develop the skill, like for me, it's not a for free. Fun is not a for free for me. Then you need to hire somebody around you that can do that and facilitate that. Some of the stuff that we've done more recently is we've always had a Christmas party to celebrate the year end and celebrate Christmas as a company. And that has gotten bigger and bigger each year. And since we've actually added quite a large Filipino footprint, now with our Filipino team members, we do a corresponding Christmas party in the Philippines that we've not attended to date, but we sponsor the party for them to get together to have a similar sense of community.
Love
And we've
that.
started adding for our stateside teams a mid-year party that is both a celebration of our anniversary, which occurs in July, and also midway through the year celebration, partway through leasing season celebration. And that's gotten bigger and cooler each year. And this year we had a bounce house and we had a caricature artist and we had all kinds of beanbag yard activities and a dunk tank too. And so then we had the executive team was all lined up to get into the dunk tank. And
So
so that's
fun.
some way that, again, these are not my ideas. These are ideas that fun people that we hired had. And they're like, "Merlin, we're signing you up for the dunk tank. This is going to be fun." So that's some of the stuff that we've done to engender that company culture.
They came up with the dunk tank just to get you in it. So they had
They
a
sure did.
chance to.
Yeah. Yeah.
I need
My
to see
son
pictures of
really
this.
loved
Yes.
my son really loved the dunk tank. He thought that was great fun to dunk dad.
Yeah.
That is so great. Oh my goodness. Okay. Well, we have gone way over time, but I think it's good. So I think people want to keep hearing this. So what is something you would tell people right now if they're feeling stuck in this whole process or and they're frustrated? What's something you can encourage them with? Something you want to talk about that maybe we haven't already talked about that will help them out?
Yeah, well, one thing that I'll dive in and say right off the bat is uh, take heart. Like this creating a business thing is hard. There's no easy path to doing it. So if it feels hard, you're not alone and it's not wrong that you're going through that. The pain is not going to kill you. Keep going. We have, like Shawn alluded to, you could look at our company sizes and our team sizes and think, oh well, that just sort of happened. No, it happened exactly the way that you are making it happen today. It happened through failure after failure after failure. It happened after frustrated employee after frustrated employee. It happened after stumbling and banging your shin on expectations that should have been clear that you didn't set on the front side. We've been studying leadership and the art of leadership for years. Since I started with the company, we've been studying all these different leadership and management texts, and it only started to really make sense when we reached a certain size. Like it was all theoretical until we actually had managers and we had leaders of others and leaders of leaders and even leaders of functions. That's when it all started to really make sense. And we still don't know what we're doing. I tell all of our team members today, listen, you probably have the impression that Merlin is some kind of, knowledgeable president, COO, integrator guy who knows everything that's going on in the company. I don't. I don't know what's going to be happening next year or next quarter. I have a prediction, but it's just as uncertain for me now as it ever was. So if you feel uncertain, if you feel lost, if you feel like it's painful, you're not alone. That's the same experience that I've been through, that Shawn has been through. We've talked about the uncertainty and the fear and the difficulty and the pain. There have been a lot of long nights. There have been a lot of worked weekends. That's all par for the course. So that's the first thing that I'll give you. The other thing that I'll say is that there's a lot of resources out there, and I encourage you to learn from others. So, Leadership Strategy and Tactics by Jocko Willink is a book that I strongly recommend. People is a book in the Traction Library that gives great resources on how to deal with people issues, how to hire, how to have conversations. Fierce Conversations will support you in stepping into some of those tough conversations. That's a text by Susan Scott. Who by Jeff Smart and Randy Street is a great book on hiring and building a hiring process. Who Not How is an excellent text by the Strategic Coach outfit. I think that is by Dr. Ben Hardy and Dan Sullivan. And that is about hiring people to do a job and to create a process, to be the owner of that process. And then the Leader Assistant and My World Class Assistant are two texts that I highly recommend for any business owner or executive in a large and growing organization. Because we're always looking for how we can get better. We're always reflecting and asking, what can I be doing better, faster, stronger to support my team? And I just had a conversation with a group of leaders in our organization, and I pointed out to them that in my experience, the vast majority of management struggles come from a lack of clarity. We think that we've been clear about what it is that we're expecting, and we as leaders have failed to clearly set expectations. And you can reset that expectation by starting with an apology and saying, I'm sorry. I have done a poor job of communicating to you what it is that I need or what it is that the organization needs. Let me fix that, because you probably can tell that I'm not happy with the work, and I can tell that I'm not happy with the work, and that is my failing because I just did not clarify for you what it is that I need. So you can take a hard conversation and turn it into an easy one, reset the expectations, and take the responsibility back on yourself as a manager or as a leader to clarify what it is that you need from the individual members of your team. So the power is yours. And if you're going through pain, don't worry, you're not alone. Keep going.
Fantastic. Thank
Good. That's
you.
great. You could drop the mic there. But I had written down, a while back, I think it was at a Max Plus group or Max group. We had Mike Bidwell, the former CEO of Neighborly, come and speak to us. And it was a good conversation because, he was a franchise E, and then became the president, and then became the, I think, CEO, and then or COO, and then CEO. But he had said that, much like Merlin was saying, it's going to be difficult. It's not easy building teams. Sometimes it's painful. But I thought something that really always stuck with me was he said people are going to come and go, and like it doesn't matter. It might be because of a mistake you made. It might be just they have a better opportunity out there. But people are going to come and go in your organization. And it's something that, because I always took it really hard when people left. I always took it like, what are we doing wrong? What mistakes did we make, or what? I always took it personally when somebody left our organization. And he mentioned that. So they're always going to come and go. And so I've always been proactive at just investing in our people. So investing in their leadership development, investing in these outreach events and activities and team building, because I would rather invest in our people, whether we've had people go and start their own companies and businesses. I mean, I'd rather somebody be growing within my organization rather than just like stay and flat and not developing themselves. So, we do a lot of personal development and book reading and all that within our organization, but I always felt like that I'd rather invest in them, even if they do leave, that rather than just, I want people that are in my organization that are thriving, that are growing themselves personally, advancing themselves, and trying to be a better person in society. So, I thought that was a great point that he had made that time when he came and addressed us. And then I'll leave with just much to like what Merlin said. It starts at the top. And so I think you need every book that he recommended is a great book. And so you can start there. But it starts with you as a franchise owner. And I think if you're frustrated or having some issues, you got to look at yourself and how can you improve and how can you fix that situation? Because I don't depend on somebody else. Don't depend on the franchise to take care of that. You've got to take ownership of that and develop your team and your organization.
So good. So good. All right, we're going to wrap up with a little bit of fun because we were talking about fun, right? So this is lightning round. Just first thing that comes off your head, a quick answer. Ready? Merlin, what is your favorite guilty pleasure?
Oh, my favorite guilty pleasure is working late. This is the first thing that came to mind. I will delay going home for dinner to get a few more projects wrapped up, and I feel guilty every time that I do it.
You gotta have some fun.
Oh my goodness.
Mine's ice cream.
Ice cream, yes. Okay, favorite stress reliever activity, not projects, Merlin.
Favorite stress reliever activity that is not getting a project done. So I'm hot and cold. If I am not getting projects done, my favorite stress reliever is alone time with nothing to do. No inbound
Nice.
activities, no anything, just being allowed to be by myself with my own thoughts and take my time.
Nice.
Mine's
Shawn?
like some sports related, like playing basketball, working out. That'd be mine. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, if we asked one of your team members what your catchphrase would be, what would it be?
Oh, jeez. I don't know.
I think it would be, you teach people how to treat you.
That's good.
Mine would probably be inspect what you expect.
Love
Yeah.
those. Okay. All right. Well, that is it. Thank you guys so much for being on here. I mean, wow, so much good information. We can literally talk about this subject for days. I feel like we've barely scratched the surface, and I know everyone's wanting to pick your brains even more, but that was very valuable. And I know people have gotten a lot out of it. I know you've encouraged a lot of people. So thank you for taking the time to be on here and to chat with us. So thank
Thank
Yes,
you.
absolutely. Thank you very much for having me. And Shawn, it's an honor to be invited to be on a panel with somebody like you.
Yeah, same with here.
Yay. Well, thank you, everyone. And thank you, our Real Property Management franchise crew. We love you all, and I hope you gained a lot. Tune in next time. Bye.
Bye-bye.
You've been listening to Inside the Wolf's Den, an entrepreneurial journey with Shawn and Joni Wolfswinkle. Tons of entrepreneurial podcasts are out there, talking. But Joni and Shawn are living it every single day. Their portfolio now includes many franchises and medium-sized businesses. We talk about the trials and motivators of successfully running a business. Join us again soon for another podcast. But until then, reach out on the website at InsideTheWolfsDen.com, on Facebook at Inside the Wolf's Den, on Instagram at Inside the Wolf Den. We'll see you again soon. This is Inside the Wolf's Den. We'll see you next time.